Hello there, time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us this time around are Charlie Wyatt, the Sun's chief football correspondent, and David Ornstein from The Athletic. Welcome to you both. And look, we have to start with that fallout from what was such a dramatic Monday night football. And it's caused some of the back pages, I'm sure, to be rewritten. Because the Premier League title race is now in Arsenal's hands. Despite that dramatic 97th minute Jeremy Doku goal for Manchester City against Everton, that only saved them a point in what was a really entertaining 3-3 draw. City at one point had been 3-1 down, so they did well to fight back. Let's get some reaction. Let's hear from the City boss, Pep Guardiola.
Second half changed, obviously, Everton getting the goal. Where do you feel the differences were then in terms of how open the game was compared to the first half?
No, as a momentum, they were more aggressive. We had, in general, we were good in our process and we arrived. Jeremy was standing in the left side and we create a lot, we arrive a lot, and unfortunately we could not capitalize, especially in the first half, that we did it. So Everton away always is difficult. And I give credit to them for his composed aggressivity and step up and nothing to say.
How pleased are you with the fight back, though, from your team to get something from the game, get a point? We don't know what this will mean in the title race, but a point will be... Does it look like a positive to you, or obviously...
No, it's better than lose, so we better win, and we play for that, and it just show what the team they are. No, we tried, and everything, the players we come up, they were aggressive, so we have done it.
In terms of the title race then, does it still feel like a blow to you, this performance, this result, sorry?
Well, now it depends on our hands. Before that game, was in our hands, in the hands of Arsenal as well, but in our hands, now no. So what we have to do is the 4 games that we have in the Premier League, so next Brentford, and they will be quite similar because the competitors are good, and we'll see what happens.
Do you still have to go to every game now, though, with that belief that you can still do it?
Yeah, of course. Like we came here.
Yeah, Pep looking a little bit shell-shocked there in his post-match interview, saying that Everton were just simply more aggressive. Let's go to the back page of The Telegraph. Advantage Arsenal is their headline. City give rivals boost by dropping 2 points in the title race. And Charlie, mathematically, we don't exactly know, for sure what that point will mean for City in terms of that title race. But Arsenal players will be watching that match, seeing the result and rubbing their hands with glee, won't they?
Absolutely. And it could have been even better, of course, for Arsenal, couldn't it? Had City not scored right at the end. But yeah, it could be a hell of a 24 hours for Arsenal fans. First of all, this result tonight, and of course, tomorrow night, the semi-finals of the Champions League. But, City was so lucky. And, at the end, they showed, in terms of their, class offensively, they showed you why they've still got a chance. But at the back, that mad spell, it showed you exactly why the title's no longer in their hands and why at times they've struggled this season. Everton were obviously worth, a point. They're gutted that they didn't win, of course. But yeah, look, Pep Guardiola, interesting interview there that you've just shown. He's bound to try and be positive, isn't he? But, I'm sure really, away from the camera, he's absolutely livid with his team.
Yeah, it looks like it. It looks like it. That's not the usual animated Pep that we're used to seeing post-match. David, it seemed to me that, for all the talk and criticism about Arsenal's players and their mentality in the big moments, it seems like the City players also showing that they are susceptible to some of that same anxiety under pressure, no?
Absolutely. And they really didn't manage that game well tonight. They've been in this position before as a club, but many of those players haven't. And when you look at Mark Gahey, who on the whole has been fantastic since signing for City, although he did miss that gilt-edged chance, you'll remember, at West Ham, he hasn't been in this position in club football. And Kusanov, I thought, struggled tonight, actually, and a few of City's other players too. And so despite the sort of club's experience at this level, these are really testing moments, and there will still be more before the season ends. Arsenal had a 9-point lead. They had the chance to go 12 points clear. They squandered it entirely. So there are cracks possible still there too, and there are tough fixtures on both sides. People looking at it and saying, well, Man City only play one more game away from home. They play Brentford and Crystal Palace at home, both of whom they've got quite bad records against at the Etihad Stadium. And then they go away to Bournemouth on the final day. Brentford and Bournemouth in particular have been flying of late. Arsenal, their real test comes away to West Ham next up, and then they would like to think that they can bring up a few goals in a victory over Burnley. And then on the final day they go to Crystal Palace, who could well have the Europa Conference League final to focus on. So it's very much in Arsenal's hands, but let's see how they respond as front runners, because they didn't do too well at that in the past, and now the pressure is firmly on them. They seem to react a bit better after the Carabao Cup final, and even when they lost at City, they were maybe in some people's eyes slight underdogs, and they seem to sort of flourish in that environment. The wins against Newcastle and of course Fulham. But City really will be kicking themselves tonight. Yeah, Pep Guardiola was composed in his interview there, and he kept saying how well his team played, but I didn't think they did at all. They had the dominance in the first half, but the way they let Everton back into it, and if it wasn't for Doku's heroics, and he's been brilliant this season, his best season in a City shirt, then they would have been staring at an even bleaker situation. So the title race still has a few twists and turns to run, I feel, but Arsenal are firmly in the driving seat. There are no excuses now, and they'll be ruining it if they don't see it over the line.
Yep, absolutely. Back page of the Mirror, that's gonna hurt, is their headline. Pep's title hopes take huge hit as Gay Clanger hands it to Arsenal. Charlie, Sky Sports pundit Jamie Carragher is saying basically when Arsenal go to West Ham at the weekend, if they win there, take all 3 points, title race is over. Is that right?
Well, certainly, first of all, it's Manchester City, Brentford, isn't it, on Saturday? Mm-hmm. And if City don't win that, it's title over. That'll be a really difficult game. Look, it's going to be a really tough game for Arsenal, West Ham, arguably the toughest they've got remaining. But it's difficult to tell, isn't it? Because, I was at the Emirates on Saturday and I really thought Arsenal face a really tough game against Fulham, who, like Everton tonight, have got hopes of, finishing in Europe. And, although Arsenal are excellent, Fulham were awful. I mean, they were really terrible. They played like a team that were, 16th and, just on the beach, so to speak. So, as David said, there will be some more twists and turns, I'm sure. I don't think it's all over, but equally, the initial pressure is on City now, because Brentford, as we know, are a brilliant team. They could finish in the Champions League spot, potentially. So, it's a really tough one, and City have to be better defensively, as they were tonight, because it was not good enough. Mark Gahey, poor mistake. We certainly won't want to be seeing that next month at the World Cup for England.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't off-key, wasn't it, Manchester City performance? Back page of the Times, too little, too late, they say. City hand Arsenal huge title advantage despite Doku heroics. Is this something for Pep to be concerned about in this title race running? Does he need to have a sit down with his players, David, and perhaps rally them up again, G them up again? Because something right mentally just wasn't there tonight.
Yeah, I don't think he'll need to motivate them much. The task is ahead of them. And listen, this could be the end of Pep Guardiola, the last few matches, if he decides to go at the end of the season. And City's players will know what's at stake here. First and foremost, they need to get Rodri back in the team. He provides the control in midfield, and that muscular injury has cost them tonight. I really felt that without him in there, that assured presence, the know-how that he has, having led them so well in the past. And John Stones even, and I know he hasn't played that much this season, but it was nights like tonight that you need the players that have been there and done it. And they struggled at centre half, and that's exactly where Stones and Ruben Diaz, of course, excel so much. And Haaland came up with the goal. You probably couldn't have asked much more of him tonight, but it wasn't commanding. From a 1-0 lead as well, you would have imagined City would have rammed home that advantage. And actually, it was Everton that were allowed to grow in confidence. And that doesn't bode well for City heading into the weekend against, as Charlie says, superior opposition to Everton. And that's taking nothing away from them. But Brentford are magnificent, and they won't go to the Etihad Stadium with any inhibition. But I think in front of their home crowd and with the task at hand and fighting to get that title and wrestle it away from Arsenal will be all the motivation he needs. It's probably more just some tactical tweaks, perhaps the return of Rodri, as I said there, and then go full throttle. They've been really good of late. That's why they fought their way back into it, City. But we saw them, earlier in the campaign. There was a slip against West Ham. There was a slip at home against Nottingham Forest. So it's not like they've been anywhere near perfect, and they're going to have to be now if they want to secure the title.
Yeah, well, Pep was saying that every match is basically a final a few weeks back. So even more now. Look at the back page of the Daily Express and Crown in the dumps, that splash photo of Pep looking like he doesn't know where to look, quite frankly. And David mentioned it there, Charlie, about maybe some tactical tweaks need to come in for Manchester City to ensure that they can carry on competing with Arsenal. You look at the substitutions they made. When they were 2-1 down, just a couple of minutes later, Pep sprung into action. He brought on Foden, he brought on Kovacic, and then they conceded another goal. Is that a sign, perhaps, that they just don't have the squad, the strength in depth, like Arsenal do, perhaps, to challenge all the way?
Well, yeah, I think, I agree with David when he said earlier that they don't have, the experience of previous seasons. Of course, you can argue that Arsenal don't have the experience of winning either because they finished second for the last 3 seasons. So that works both ways. I get it. The most surprising thing, really, at the end, was that when Everton made it 3-1, Sky sort of panned on to the pictures of Man City fans leaving the ground. You'd have thought they've got a bit more faith in their team. And, if any team was going to scrape a point at the end, it was Manchester City. And, of course, they did that with a couple of unbelievable goals. But, of course, it's not the City team of previous seasons. That's why, why they're not sort of, running away with the league. Of course, last season, was tough for them as well because, Liverpool were by far and away the best team, in England. But, I think the most interesting thing is, what Pep Guardiola is feeling tonight, what Guardiola feels in terms of whether he's going to, stay or go. I'm sure he's made up his mind, even though quite clearly everyone at Manchester City is not sure, what's he going to do. But, a really tough night for City. But, of course, it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, so it means that Arsenal's lead at the top is now 5 points. City still have that game in hand. What a run-in it's going to be. OK, Charlie, David, thank you for the moment. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be looking at more of the sports stories in the morning's newspapers, including this in the Star as Mikel Arteta calls for his Arsenal side to become mentality monsters and reach the Champions League final. Hello again, you're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to The Sun's chief football correspondent, Charlie Wyatt, and David Ornstein of The Athletic. OK, we've reflected on Mancity dropping points against Everton, and no doubt that will have repercussions for Arsenal in the title race. But first, they're focused on the Champions League. Back page of the Star, beast mode activated is the headline. Mikel Arteta is ready to unleash Arsenal's wild beasts, his words, in order to reach the Champions League final. They're up against Atletico Madrid, Charlie, and I wonder how big of a boost mentally it will be for the fact that they've seen City drop points in the title race, but also after the way they played against Fulham, it feels like there's a real sense of belief within the team now.
Yeah, it was Saturday was the best they've played for a while. Totally agree with you. I think the result tonight with Manchester City will make the atmosphere even better at the Emirates for the game against Atletico Madrid. Yeah, the Beasts comment was actually the last sentence of Mikel Arteta's press conference tonight. It was really unusual. For the first time this season, he did his press conference at the Emirates, not at the training ground. Normally it's around lunchtime, but he spoke this evening at 7 o'clock. Victor Gyökeres spoke at 3 o'clock, and then in between that, we had Diego Simeone and Antoine Griezmann. So it was quite an unusual setup. But so he spoke after Simeone, and yeah, Arteta really upbeat, getting that positive message across. Confirm that Havertz and Odegaard are in the squad, although I don't expect them to start. But look, Arsenal, I mean, what an incredible... I know it's been a bit difficult the last few weeks, but look where they are in the league, and they're at home in the second leg of a Champions League semi-final. Favourites to go through, not been in a Champions League final for 20 years, the only time they've managed to do that. So yeah, I think that atmosphere ahead of the game tomorrow will be incredible.
It really will be. I'm sure the Emirates will be absolutely rocking. And David, when you consider as well, Havertz, Odegaard will be available in the squad. Saka back already and looking like he's playing near his best. It just feels like the stars are maybe aligning for Arsenal in terms of injuries and that boost it brings to the team.
Yeah, he's talking about beast mode. Previously, it was I'm on fire. I think he said, bring your lunches. And judging by Charlie's schedule that he's described of today at the Emirates, he wants journalists to camp out as well. It's going to be a big night at the Emirates. And they're talking about some enormous tifo that's going to be dropped from the East Stand, their biggest ever, and fans arriving at 5:45 for the sort of bus arrival, as we've seen with some other clubs over the years. It's tub-thumping stuff. Arteta really wants to raise the roof. I think he described this as being the biggest match in Arsenal's history after the Fulham game. In his eyes, and certainly of this stadium, I think it was perhaps. Arsenal stand on the precipice of unthinkable glory. They've got an opportunity to get to their second Champions League final and are very much alive and kicking now in those two competitions. Which you wouldn't have thought the way they were playing a few weeks ago. But fair play to them. And yeah, they've got the players available according to Arteta. How fit Odegaard and Havertz are, let's see. But maybe he wants to sort of give off the impression of a squad that's fit and raring to go and are going to give everything here. You mentioned Saka there. He only played 45 at the weekend, so I think that was pre-planned. He seems to be working his way back to fitness, and it's no disrespect to Noni Madueke, but what a difference Saka makes when he plays. He was absolutely pivotal to him, to them, and with Victor Gyökeres hitting form, I've seen Wayne Rooney talking, saying he's had a really good season, and I agree with that. If you look at the numbers he's posted in his debut campaign for Arsenal, and also the impact, he's influenced Arsenal getting to this stage. Of course, he might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I actually think he's done better than a lot of people are giving him credit for. And then you've got the colossal Rice and the way that Lewis Skelly came into the team at the weekend gives Arsenal an amazing option there that maybe they should have utilised earlier in the campaign. And the two centre-backs and goalkeeper and so on. Arsenal are primed. Atletico actually got back to winning ways after a really poor spell of results at the weekend, and they rested some players as well. But Arsenal managed 2-2, and I think they go into this game as favourites. They've already beaten Atletico this season, and they've really got an incredible opportunity here. They will be kicking themselves if they don't seize it.
Yeah, an incredible opportunity, and it feels it's a real sense of positivity around the club. Just briefly, Charlie, do you think Arsenal can make it through to the Champions League final for the first time in 20 years?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, they weren't brilliant last week. Although, of course, they felt they were robbed of getting a second penalty and a 2-1 win. Ultimately, overall, I thought Atletico were the better team. So to still get away with a 1-1 draw was decent. And I think the stars are aligning for Arsenal to finally get into the Champions League final. It's funny, isn't it? Because there's been lots of pessimistic Arsenal fans, and I get it as well, fearing that everything was going to go wrong. And of course, they could still end up with nothing. But equally, it could be the best season in their history, better than anything Arsene Wenger ever achieved. Yeah. That was to win the league and the Champions League at the same time is extraordinary. And it's all going to happen this month now, isn't it? So I can understand why Arsenal fans are incredibly nervous, maybe petrified, but also really, really excited.
And David, in a word, will Arsenal win through?
They'll win through. I don't know if they'll win the Champions League, though, and I think they should now win the Premier League.
Okay, wow. A double, perhaps, maybe. Who knows? Arsenal fans, all to play for. Okay, let's move on to Chelsea. Another defeat, unfortunately for them. 6 in a row now in the Premier League. Inside the Times, you'll see the headline, and it's not favourable at all, is it, for Chelsea? Pompous Chelsea blown away by second-string Forest. Charlie, what did you make of Chelsea's performance? Are you able to pinpoint exactly where this has all gone so badly wrong? They're hanging on for hopes of a Champions League qualification, but it looks very unlikely.
Well, I mean, European football looks very unlikely, and at this stage, getting finishing the top half of the table is unlikely. It's all turning, quite embarrassing, really. And this is why Arsenal fans have got to savour it where they are now, because it doesn't last forever. And Chelsea, is really, starting to collapse there, really. And what's happened, over the last few transfer windows and with the mess with all the managers, is really hitting them hard. So, but equally, we've got to really praise Nottingham Forest. I mean, I thought when Forest, was still going deep into the Europa League, I thought, is this going to affect their fight for survival? And it does show you that winning games, whatever competition it is, helps you. Because what is it, a 10-game unbeaten run now? It is remarkable. And being in Europe's probably helped them. So, equally, they're going to avoid relegation, that's for sure. And, of course, they could end up winning the Europa League and end up getting into the Champions League. Remarkable run. And I think, Pereira, the manager, and all the players need to take a lot of credit.
Absolutely remarkable what he's done. Just sticking with Chelsea, though, David, Jamie Redknapp, Sky Sports pundit, described Chelsea as a broken club. Does that feel fair or harsh?
It's not good, is it? And I just want to reiterate the praise for Nottingham Forest. Sensational. That was their B team, and they are flying. And credit all the way from the ownership, Evangelos Marinakis, all the way down through the club and to the playing staff, and definitely Pereira. What a job he's doing. But yeah, Chelsea, I think they just want to get to the end of the season now. It's looking forlorn. There's no confidence. It's sort of record in terms of how bad it is. There are unwanted records being broken left, right, and centre. Some of those players look like they're just waiting for the World Cup now, which is shameful if it's the case. There's no belief. There's no sort of creativity. They started terribly today, and Callum McFarlane has called that unacceptable. The first 15 minutes absolutely was. I don't know what Cucurella's defending was doing there. He's had a lot to say off the pitch, and he's not delivering on it, Cucurella, and all the way through. I mean, they ended up being in a position with Cole Palmer missing a penalty and the headed chance for Tosin at the end. They could have got something, but it's bleak. And Tottenham will probably go to Chelsea, given their form at Villa Park last night, thinking they can get a result there. And I don't know what it would mean for Chelsea and their financial situation, which was built around Champions League or Europa League qualification. And they want to do some more recruitment work in the summer. So, longer term, Chelsea would like to feel that with their young players, the youngest squad in the Premier League on average, that there's hope for optimism, but it's looking really bad.
OK, we've come to time. Thank you very much, David Ornstein, Charlie Wyatt. Great to have you on the show. Of course, if you missed any of the programme, there's another chance to see Back Pages at 1:30, and it's available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages wherever you get your podcasts. Join us again on Tuesday night, where our guests will be Henry Winter and Riyad Al Samurai. Sky Sports Breakfast will be back from 7 a.m. with more from Thierry Henry. Plenty of build-up to Arsenal's Champions League semi-final second leg against Atletico as well. Here on Sky Sports News.